Ask any mermaid you happen to see, what's the best tuna, chicken of the sea? If that jingle sounds familiar, chances are you'll recognize the drawing in this video. But first things first. Hi, I'm Irene, and this is Inkworks, where I play with watercolors, gouache, inks, pens, and pencils. This art session begins with a sped-up sketching portion, before moving on to the inking process, and then finishing with a bit of color penciling. Along the way, I'll intersperse anecdotes and tangents, because I can. So now that you're aware of what's to come, I'll start talking about the tools and supplies. This is just a sheet of paper from my Blick drawing pad. Here's the deal. I've been wanting to do an inked piece, so while recently flipping through the pad, I came across a sketch from over a year ago. It's based on the early versions of the Chicken of the Sea mermaid. I'm specifying early because although this style worked for the 1950s, 60s, and 70s, it was changed in the 80s to a more modern style. Personally, I think the vintage mermaid is more charming, so that's the one I went with. That's a regular number 2 pencil, like ones used in grade school. Or at least that's what we used back in the day. At the start of each school year, we received a list of supplies to purchase, and amongst the loose leaf paper, peaches, rulers, erasers, and glue was the ubiquitous number 2 pencils. Do students still use those in class? I'm curious what the list looks like nowadays. By the way, number 2 is equivalent to an HB. I'm talking about lead, and by lead I mean graphite. Yeah, it's confusing, but now's not the time to get into it. For those who are unfamiliar, Chicken of the Sea is a brand of canned tuna. When I was growing up, there were 3 big names in that category: Bumblebee, Starkist, and Chicken of the Sea. Not surprisingly, Bumblebee had a cartoon mascot named Horatio, and for a while their slogan was, "It's so good you can eat it plain." Starkist had a series of commercials featuring their wisecracking cartoon mascot, Charlie. Chicken of the Sea also had a cartoon mascot, a pretty mermaid with a barely covered bosom. Odd how she had neither a personality nor a name. What gives, COTS? That's what I'm calling Chicken of the Sea going forward. COTS. I think the Starkist ads were more memorable. Charlie would demonstrate why he was a great catch, and thus worthy of being canned for human consumption. But every time, the corporate response was, "Sorry, Charlie." It was a catchy marketing campaign, especially when another fish would pipe in with, "But Charlie, Starkist doesn't want tunas with good taste. They want tunas that taste good." And that's why Funko Pop has Charlie the tuna, but not the nameless COTS mermaid. Okay, while researching this subject, I've discovered that as of 2014, the mermaid does have a name. Catalina. Whatever. Catalina was no doubt drummed up for some self-serving promotional event. Well, too little, too late. Oh, hold on. It says on their official site, the event was to celebrate 100 years of the brand, and they donated $1 million to 100 nonprofit organizations and people who work to improve their communities. Fine. Catalina it is. Of course, I took some artistic license with this, so the details aren't an exact match to the official mascot. That reminds me, I once got a bug up my butt to redo the Starbucks mermaid. Fortunately for you all, it happened in the pre-Inkworks time. So I painted a watercolor fish woman with oddly positioned arms in front of a big yellow star. This was before I learned about subtlety in art. I won't insert the image here because, well, bare boobs. Long story short, Starbucks never called, and my dreams of becoming a corporate graphic designer were dashed as I cried, "But I'm a star!" Name that film reference. The ink for today is Noodler's Bad Blue Heron. It was featured in a previous video because it was part of the TrueFace subscription box for June 2023. I have other blue inks, but this is quite a large bottle, nearly 90 milliliters, so it was the obvious choice to use for an arting project. I could use as much as I wanted and not feel bad over wasting ink. You couldn't see it, but I was air quoting the heck out of the word wasting, because while it may not be its intended use, arting with ink is, in my opinion, ink well spent. But that sort of reasoning doesn't always quiet the disapproving voice in the back of your mind. The day will come when the fate of the world will rest on your bottle of Bad Blue Heron, and you're gonna say, "My bottle? Sure, it's right here. Oh, oops." At this moment, I want to point out that this piece is dedicated to my good friend Gail, a lover of mermaids and of the color blue, who's been not only my best pal for 40 years, but also a loyal supporter of this channel since the beginning. Thanks, G. See? I do have a real-life friend. To apply the ink, I used a Princeton Aqua Elite brush, a number 2 round. Normally, I like to reserve my Aqua Elites for watercolor use only, but I figured the synthetic filaments would work fine for this medium. And as long as I remember to clean it thoroughly afterwards, there shouldn't be any problems. Story time. That's right, I'm gonna dredge up some old and musty tuna memories. That makes it sound like a forgotten casserole tucked in the back of the fridge since the 70s. Not that I'd know what that's like. I may have mentioned this before, but my mom's tuna casserole was always a bit dry and underseasoned because she didn't add condensed cream of mushroom soup. I expect that was due to either cost or the fact that she came from Japan. So I grew up thinking tuna casserole was the worst. Even now that I know about the Campbell's soup secret, and after making it with delicious results several times, it's just not among my favorite dishes. My childhood tuna salad sandwiches were a little better. It was just mixed with mayonnaise and ketchup. Later on, when I started fixing my own food, I omitted the ketchup and added relish for a whole new ballgame. These days, the additional touch of seasoned salt and sliced tomatoes really does it for me. Of course, I squeeze as much liquid as possible from the tuna beforehand. There are few things as off-putting as tuna salad swimming in juice. Nowadays, there are more convenience options, other than cans, I mean. And not only for tuna. Just the other night, I made a creamy pasta with Alfredo sauce and added a pouch of smoked salmon. That's right, a pouch. Woohoo! Fish in a pouch. I think they should go further and add fish to other food products, like deli sliced fish loaf for sandwiches, fried fish and vinegar potato chips, and smoked salmon jam in a jar. Think of the pokeabilities. I watched the latest video from YouTube channel Art on the Creek. It's about World Watercolor Month, which is interesting in itself. But Anne also talked about the importance of nurturing creativity in kids, and that got me thinking about when I was a kid. I watched my older siblings draw, ink, and paint, flipping through their sketchbooks over and over again, and I often tried to copy the things they created. Pretty sure our mom never said, "Stop arting so much," although she did suggest we draw fewer monsters and more flowers. But in addition to all of that, there was a modest collection of art books in the house. Bridgman's Drawing from Life, How to Draw Comics the Marvel Way, Bern Hogarth's Dynamic Figure Drawing, and Creative Illustration by Andrew Loomis, as well as a hardbound collection of Alex Raymond's Flash Gordon comic strip, several softbound volumes of The Fantastic Art of Frank Frazetta, and a book featuring works by N.C. Wyeth and Howard Pyle. What this boils down to is I didn't have anyone telling me that arting was a pointless exercise, or that there's no use for creativity. Not every artist will be famous or rich, but that's not the point. First and foremost, I art for myself. Second and foremost is the desire to make a living at it. I don't want to end up like Larry Flint. No, not that Larry Flint. I'm talking about the fictional artist played by Paul Newman in the 1964 romantic comedy, What a Way to Go. Flint devised a system of producing original masterpieces with a machine, going from avant-garde bohemian to sell-out poser, and is eventually killed due to his obsession with success. That's not a big spoiler. I mean, that character was only in the movie for like 20 minutes, because it's actually about a woman who keeps falling in love and marrying guys who immediately die after making it big. Yes, it is a comedy. The final touches on this piece were applied with colored pencils. A Derwent Pro Color pencil in Buttercup Yellow and a Derwent drawing pencil in Smoke Blue. Good brush inking is a learned and practiced skill, and I've now learned that I'm way out of practice. The thing is, good brush inking gives delightfully varied thickness to your lines. Sure, there are markers out there that produce a similar effect. I'm not saying those don't require know-how as well. I've actually been eyeballing a bunch of art markers online. What I'm saying is there's a certain satisfaction in earning a skill through dedicated work, so you can create art with your hands or with a muddy stick, and not just push a button on the painting pop-o-matic. I'm happy to share this arting session. Until next time, remember, chickens are on land, fish are in water, unless it's the elusive man-eating poultry piranha. Oh, I can almost hear Mom now. Enough with the monsters. And stay artsy, my friends.